and the speed at which the towers actually fell, which is very close to free fall speed. Cutler's analysis in particular shows that when you consider these laws of physics, conservation of momentum in particular, and energy, then you find that the fall would necessarily have taken over 30 seconds with just very reasonable assumptions. And when I say over 30, it could be a very long time. In other words, the fall could have been arrested. If the safety factor was about 2.9, it works out that the collapse would have stopped. It would have been arrested.
So I may put it in plain talk for our viewers who will be looking at this. Is there any other model or any other law that would override conservation of energy and conservation of momentum to explain the free fall speed? Is there another set of circumstances that could have explained this?
Yes, the use of explosives. Now, that we still are conserving energy and momentum, but what we're doing is moving material out of the way so that now the upper floors can move at near free fall speed because you get the about 300,000 tons of concrete and steel in the lower building out of the way. Then, of course, the upper part, the roof and the antenna and so on, can proceed at near free fall speed. That's the only way that I can see. And that's the conclusion of others as well who've looked at this hard. Let me throw in one other thing, Lenny. I was very pleased that Professor James Quintier, University of Maryland, and also worked at NIST for about 19 years, recently gave a talk in which he challenged and critiqued the NIST report on the tower's collapse. And his remarks are available online. He also critiqued the fact that NIST has not yet provided a report on the collapse of World Trade Center 7. So that is not to say that he's a conspiracy theorist, so to speak, which the History Channel liked to use that term. But you know, Professor Quintier did say we should all be conspiracy theorists in a proper way, is the way he put it. We should all be conspiracy theorists in a proper way. And I thought, that's right. You know, we need to be scientific about it. And he's calling these guys to task. And I was very pleased. That's just in recent weeks that he spoke at a big conference and made those statements about the NIST report, challenging them.
Dr. Jones, one last question. In your interview with History Channel, did you at any point refer to the use of thermate?
Yes, I did talk to the History Channel interviewers. These guys were actually from NBC for this History Channel special. I talked to them about thermite, and I talked to them in particular about the microspheres that we have observed in the World Trade Center dust, and not just ourselves. Turns out that U.S. Geological Survey, in their published report, also talks about iron-rich spheres in the World Trade Center dust, as does R.J. Lee. They looked at the World Trade Center dust also. So we, however, have gone a step further and have shown how these spheres could originate. And they're abundant, and not just iron. By the way, there's silicate spheres. USGS reports other anomalies, and so does the R.J. Lee report, anomalies in the dust that indicate extremely high temperatures. I reviewed a lot of that material, and of course, in my talk at the University of Texas at Austin, I emphasized the occurrence, the hard physical evidence represented by these tiny spheres that are found by the thousands and hundreds of thousands, finally, in the dust. They vary in size from a micron up to the largest one we found is 1.5 millimeters. It's about a 16th of an inch. I saw that by eye, just looking. And the glassy sphere was 1 millimeter in diameter.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Now, let's take a look at another clip from 9/11 Conspiracies, Fact or Fiction.
We had our hands on the pieces of steel. What we did was factual. We back it up with calculations. We back it up with scientific principle.
Some people might think that it looks like a controlled demolition, but it has nothing to do with it. We were able to develop an analytical analog of the whole collapse mechanism, had nothing to do with any outside or inside explosives other than the impact of the plane and the fire.
That again was History Channel's expert, Mathis Levy, explaining how what we saw was a natural occurrence. Sophia Smallstorm, creator of the documentary 9/11 Mysteries, was interviewed extensively in History Channel's piece and now joins us by phone. Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you.
Sophia, you just heard History Channel's explanation. Is the expert indeed using facts and solid evidence, and what's your take on his explanation?
Well, I think they're just trying to create belief and perception in us, which is what they have themselves. That guy, whoever he was, has a belief that he is proffering as fact, when if he really studies facts, which would come from the kind of reservoir of laws of science and physics, he would see, with just an application of a tiny bit of logic, that what he is telling us happened didn't happen.
Sophia, a little earlier in the film, we looked at a clip having a demolition expert explain that when a building is demoed, that they cut out the bottom of it, that the damage starts at the bottom, and that it would have been impossible to know where the planes were going to impact the buildings and start an explosive sequence coming down from there. You've talked to a lot of demolition experts. The sequence of a timed demolition, does it really matter how it's planned?
Well, in a steel frame building, what I learned was that they do blow the basement. They gut the bottom of the building first so that the building has a big cavity to fall into. Then they have to start the fall itself. So they do something called cracking the top. They set explosives at the top of the building, and you can see this in videos of the two towers. There is a lot of action at the top of the building, consisting of puffs of smoke and flame and whatnot, that is, to anyone, from anyone's perspective, something is happening there. There are explosives going off there. And then you see these belts of explosives coming all the way down in regular puffs of smoke at regular intervals.
Sophia, is there any doubt in your mind that this was a controlled demolition?
Well, in the umbrella definition of the term, this was a demolition that was pre-planned and therefore controlled. Yes, it had to have been. Buildings don't just fall down like that.
Finally, Sophia, what was your experience with the filmmaker, Brad Davis?
The producer, Brad Davis, was very, very decent. He was curious. I felt he was intrigued by this. He had done a lot of exploration. I had sent him materials, and he had obviously studied up on the subject. He was traveling the country interviewing me, Dylan Avery, Alex Jones, David Griffin, and he was a person who was displaying real interest and real curiosity. He was not a fraud. He was not a fake. And I told him, I'm glad to be doing this interview with you. You are a decent person. I asked him whether he had any idea how the piece would turn out ultimately. And he told me that he would do his best to produce a good representation of all of us.
Sophia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We soon discovered not everyone agreed with Sophia's take on the History Channel crew. In the next part of our special series, INN Takes on the History Channel, we will speak to syndicated radio host Alex Jones and also to the creator of Loose Change, Dylan Avery. See you then.